Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. Thank you so much for tuning in. I did my first ever, never done it before on this channel or in any other capacity, tier list, and I was really behind at the early part of the year for my new movie releases that I had been catching. I think I only had 15 movies that I saw that were 2025 releases in the first quarter of the year, January, February, March. So I was way behind, but I ranked all those on a tier list. I'm going to do this every single month for you. So guess what? The next month on the calendar is April, and I'm here to tell you that I did much, much better. All that being said, on the tier list that we're doing tonight, I'm going to be ranking the 20 new releases that I saw in the month of April. It was actually a pretty good month, honestly. Overall, I was worried if you watch that first tier list I did, or hell, if you even go to movies yourself, through March, you were probably a little concerned. It was a little weak in terms of new releases. We just weren't getting a lot of stuff. I mean, I really liked Mickey 17. There was a couple indie films that didn't get wide releases that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't really until April when things finally kicked into high gear, and I think the masses have rallied around quite a few films that came out this month. So let me give you my tier list ranking of the 20 new releases that I saw. Some of these did come out pre-April, but I'm including 2025 films, or frankly, any film that I've seen for the very first time. They just all happen to be 25 releases that we're going to be going over tonight on this tier list. Alrighty, so as we get into it here, I have all of the 20 films down here, as you can see, just the movie posters. And I list them in alphabetical order to not try to get in my head before I start ranking them. I'm kind of doing this in real time. Of course, I've rated all these on LETTERBOXD at a minimum. Some of them I've even done reviews here on the channel for, but it should match up pretty much with how I felt when I saw the movie and ranked it on the spot there, which is usually what I do. So first up is a movie called The Assessment. This is an interesting sci-fi futuristic story starring Alicia Vikander and Elizabeth Olsen. And I really dug this thing. I mean, it is really like kind of apocalyptic almost. It's definitely like got some bleak vibes to it going on, but there's a little bit of like Blade Runner in there. There's obviously a huge influence of AI in this film and kind of what that's become. Like this, I can't remember if they say the year in this movie, but it's like 20 or 30 years in the future. But I don't want to give anything away because there are some interesting plot twists in the film. They've basically outlawed baby making, or they've outlawed pregnancies and having children, unless you pass an assessment to increase the population. The world is overpopulated 30 years in the future. So in order to do that, an assessor comes into the couple's home and lives with them for a week and observes them and does an assessment on them and decides whether or not they pass the assessment and are given the green light to have a baby. So Alicia Vikander, who is an Oscar winner and Ex Machina, and I freaking love her, and she is so good in this role because listen to what this is. So she comes in as the assessor, right? Elizabeth Olsen and Hamish Patel are the married couple that want to have a baby. And when Vikander is there observing him, the idea is she starts like that first day is like, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm going to be grading you on. Much more like, almost like a CPA, kind of like going over your taxes with you. But as the week goes on, she starts to act more and more like a child. Various iterations of what their kid would essentially go through behavior-wise, eating, whatever. So there's moments in the movie when Vikander is acting like a newborn baby, literally like throwing cereal and like crying like a newborn baby does. There's other parts of the movie where she's acting like she's maybe like 8 or 9 years old and has an attitude and is acting out. And she's doing all this to see how they are going to react if they actually had a child going through that. So this is an adult woman in her like 30s acting like a newborn baby, and they have to play along in order to pass the assessment. There's even a scene in it when Elizabeth Olsen gives Vikander a sponge bath. This one is going to go on the stellar tier from me. I love this thing. I think I gave it a 7 out of 10. I didn't do a review here on the channel, but that's where I would put it, on the stellar side of 7. Next up is an independent horror film that I caught on Shudder a couple weeks ago. It's streaming on there, called The Dead Thing. This one was somewhat disappointing, although I didn't hate it. But this movie fell victim to something that I typically kind of get up in arms about, where I read it on paper or I see the synopsis on IMDb or Letterboxd on the TV when I'm flipping through, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a wonderful premise. I love how that sounds. And then you watch it, and the premise kind of wears out its welcome in the first like half hour, and the rest of the movie just kind of becomes redundant. But the general plot of this one is also futuristic. It's got a little sci-fi element to it. It's basically a ghost story, okay? But the ghosts, or the, you know, ones that are in the afterlife or the other realm, are communicated to and exist to us that are still alive on Earth through a dating app. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything. However, they give you the plot twist and they kind of tell you what you're dealing with, like I said, in that first half hour. So once that happens, it's really slow and really dull. There's not a lot else to the story after that initial kind of reveal. The dead thing I'm going to put on okay. You know, I am saying WTF also because it didn't have the punch it needed after that first act. So it would sit around a 5 out of 10 for me overall. I'll put it on the green tier. I'll tell you what's not going to go on the green tier, and that's going to be Drop from Christopher Landon. Holy shit. It is an 8 out of 10 for me. I freaking love this movie. I did a full review on the channel for Drop. You can check it out. I'll tag it on this video for you if you want to hear my full thoughts. But I thought Christopher Landon, yet again, did something fresh and innovative with a pretty tired trope. You know, a girl is trapped and she's being held against her will. Somebody is basically holding her or somebody she loves hostage, and she has to figure out how to get out of the situation. And it's all being done on cell phones and through the AirDrop system. AirDrops on your iPhone. So just like I said with the Dead Thing, doing it through a dating app, we have Drop doing it through airdropping, in which of course you have to be in a certain radius to be able to airdrop someone. So I love the innovation of incorporating technology into these horror movies. And Christopher Landon has a knack. He is undefeated, honestly, in my opinion. Freaky, the Happy Death Day films. And we've got another gem here with Drop. I would give it an 8 out of 10. It's going to be on the stellar tier. One of the biggest surprises for me, actually, I got to look through this list. This might be the biggest surprise for me of the year. It's a movie called Emotes. I describe this film as having the vibes of Napoleon Dynamite, or like a Jared Hess directed film like that, Nacho Libre, Napoleon Dynamite, if all the characters were in their 50s and 60s and they were playing baseball throughout the whole movie. It is a very touching, endearing film that I didn't think I was going to be into, even though I love baseball, because it plays out in essentially real time. It's like a 90-minute movie, and these guys that are in their 50s, or in some cases 60s, older gentlemen, came together every week for their weekly baseball games. And they find out that the sandlot, or the field that they've been playing on for decades, is getting torn down because they're putting up a big office park there. So this is the last game that they're sharing together as friends. And they come together and these two teams play each other. And the movie is the duration of the game, essentially. And it just kind of follows their relationships, their jokes, their conversations with each other, the actual gameplay itself. You know, I don't think you really even have to like baseball to dig this movie, honestly. That helped me, because I am a huge baseball fan. But Emotes is also going to go on the stellar tier, and I'm probably going to put it right ahead of The Assessment, but still behind Drop. It is going to be an 8 out of 10 for me. Then you got a movie called Freaky Tales, which is a anthology horror kind of action thing. It stars Pedro Pascal, who is booked and busy, to say the least. I mean, the guy is freaking everywhere. I'm going to put it on the It's Fine tier. I would give it about a 6 out of 10. It's an anthology film where all the stories are kind of intertwined, but there's no through line narrative plot, really. Like, I don't really know what this movie's about necessarily, and that kind of brought it down a little bit for me. It is shot in the 1980s, which I love. I love the aesthetic in the film. There's a lot of cool kills in the movie, especially when we get to the last act of the movie. But these scenes with Pedro are my favorite, and he's really only in 2 of those stories. I think there's 5 stories in total, and you find out in the end how they all kind of come together. But 3 out of the 5 stories were really bland. I just didn't really get into them. But the last 2 were really good. So the movie ends on a super high note. So that's where the score of the 6 is coming from, because it probably would have been more on the blue tier had we not kind of elevated the proceedings as we went along. Now, one that surprised me, that I don't know why I like this thing so much, but it's called F, Marry, Kill. It stars Lucy Hale in the lead role. Another dating app horror movie. This is the second one, and if you count Drop, this is the 3rd horror movie I've seen this month that incorporates apps and cell phones. So it's kind of weird. I guess that's going to be a new subgenre. It's like a Mean Girls or a Clueless type modernization with the characters, right? And the premise is Lucy Hale was recently broken up from a boyfriend. She decides to get back out there. So she goes on the dating apps and she starts matching with these dudes. While that's happening, we find out in the city that she lives in, there's a serial killer. We find out he is finding his victims through this dating app, and they're dying when they're on their dates with him. When we find out she's already got 3 dudes that she's really into. So that's where you have your fuck, marry, kill scenario, because the movie sets it up like a game of Clue, where now you're trying to figure out which of those 3 is the killer, because they all have these suspicious things about them, but they all also have these other kind of innocent qualities that you kind of hope it's not him and that he can be with Lucy Hale. So it's really funny and charming, and I really like the plot twist at the end of the movie too when we find out which one is the killer. But in terms of these like modern technology kind of lower budget horror movies, I really dug it. It had a lot of good humor in it. I'm going to put it up on the stellar tier, but it is going to be towards the lower end of the 7s. It's going to be right at a 7 out of 10 for me. You know, people probably aren't going to like it as much as I do, but I had a great time with it. One movie I did not have a great time with, but I wanted to, is on Prime right now. It's a Prime original called G20. Man, I can't because it's got Viola Davis in it. I was thinking about putting it on the Kill Me tier, but in fairness, it has Viola Davis playing the president. So right there off the bat, you're already at like a 3 out of 10 because, I mean, it's Viola Davis. But she was super underused in the film, and the action in this movie is like, the choreography and the special effects are lower tier at best. It's really spotty. And it's just a very formulaic, like, okay, Air Force One Harrison Ford did that. You know, that was a masterpiece. You know, he did that. So now we have that kind of same storyline playing out, and it's just not believable to me. Like, it's, even with Viola Davis, it's just not believable that the president of the United States, regardless if they're female or not, just in general, the president is going to be kicking ass, machine guns, driving cars off the road, and doing all this shit to save the day. That's just not believable to me. You know, it might work once every 20 or 30 years. There might be one where it's like, okay, the performances were so good, the special effects were so good that I could suspend that disbelief. That's not the case with G20. Literally the only good thing about it was Viola Davis, and man, if she was president, that would be up on the no notes tier. I'll tell you that right now, but not the movie. It's going to be around a 4 out of 10. Yikes. Next is a movie called Havoc, which is the last film that I've seen this month. I'm going to throw that one up here on the It's Fine tier. It's going to go ahead of Freaky Tales, but I would give both of those around a 6 out of 10. You know, Havoc was good. I think, and I put this in my Letterboxd review too, I think I have to come to terms with the fact that I just like Tom Hardy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I've just never really thought of him as one of my favorite actors. But I think that's the case. And it's directed by Gareth Evans too, who has a knack for doing really good special effects and action sequences. And there's a lot of good ones in here. The movie just doesn't let you really connect to any of the characters or the victims in the movie. It's more so like it played like a procedural kind of with all these like action spectacles kind of throughout it. It's very gory, very brutal action, which I like. But it is a little shoddy at times, just like I said earlier with G20. And, you know, this is a Netflix original, so they have this whole subgenre of these like big budget, almost, if they were in theaters, would be blockbuster action movies in the 90s kind of movies that just show up on Netflix. And this is another one. It wasn't horrible. And like I said, Tom Hardy really made it what it was for me personally, because I just love when he plays that like bitter, rundown, gritty loner that he plays. And he does it again here in Havoc. And like I said, it's fine. You know, if you like action movies, you'll dig it. Check it out. Next is another one that's going to go on the It's Fine tier. It's going to go before Freaky Tales, but right behind Havoc. Also a 6 out of 10 for me. And that's Hell of a Summer, which is the camp slasher that Finn Wolfhard and Billy Brick wrote together. What's really cool about this movie is not so much the movie itself, but it's the love letter that you could see that Wolfhard and Brick had for the horror genre, for the old 80s and 90s, like camp slashers and just slashers in general, because those tropes are overused. And in this movie, what they do is they use them because they're paying homage to a genre they obviously love, but they're calling it out when they do it. You know, kind of like how Scream was meta in that way. A tremendous Boy Next Door performance from Fred Heckinger, who was in Thelma this past year. He's actually been everywhere lately. And he has a great boyish charm to him that really came out and shined in this movie too. Next up is one that I really wanted to like. It stars Nicole Kidman, and the movie's called Holland, but I'm going to put it on the okay. It would be probably around a 5 out of a 10 for me. It would go in front of these ones. It's better than the two other ones that are on that tier, but another one where the premise literally sounds phenomenal, but it also sounds like it's been overdone, which kind of is what happens. It's almost like a Stepford Wives type situation, which she was also in the remake of that film, and it gave me those kind of vibes and reminded me of her in that. But basically, her and her husband, who's played by Matthew McFadden, he's a dentist in this like perfect town, suburbia, and it's modeled after the country of Holland. It's in Holland, Michigan, which is actually a town. I looked it up after I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, that's a real thing that exists. I wonder how they felt about this film, because it doesn't paint the town as the greatest when you find out kind of the intertwining plot twist here. But I don't want to give it away, because I don't think the promotional materials give away exactly what ends up being kind of the twist in the movie. But there's always something a little off with the film, and that's intentional. But the problem is that it has too many things going on at the same time, and you don't know which path to follow. And then when we find out what path we're on, the rug's kind of pulled out from underneath us, and it's a little bit too late to kind of look back on everything we've been following to that point. Nicole Kidman is great in it, though. She's really good. She's hamming it up. And Matthew McFadden is, too. His character, you just feel weird about his character. You're just like, what is this dude's deal? Why is he so perfect? You know, it's just, whenever somebody's like perfect in a movie, you're like, hang on a second. So go into it with a grain of salt. It's got some good parts, but overall, it's just kind of like, sure, I guess. How about Heart Eyes, which is a slasher film that came out around Valentine's Day that I recently just caught. It's going to be on the It's Fine tier, but it's going to be closer to that 7 as opposed to a 6. It's good. There were some really, really good kills in this movie. I love the opening of this film. The first like 10 minutes of the movie, the cold open, if you will, was freaking awesome. It gave me memories of like Scream from '96, which I already mentioned on this video once already. But it runs out of steam, and this is one where I didn't buy into the plot twist. We get the reveal. You know, all these movies, when you're trying to figure out the mass killer and who they are, sometimes it'll hit you harder than others. This one didn't hit me at all. I was just kind of like, oh, well, that's stupid. What? Who cares? Why was that the killer? Why did they go through all this trouble to do that? You know, that's kind of how I felt. So, and then Mason Gooding, you know, whenever he pops up, I just keep telling myself, I can't believe he's still alive in that Scream franchise. How many times did they stab that dude? Guys, I never in a million years, when I'm sitting down here to do this, would have told you that I'm going to put a Minecraft movie on the stellar tier, but I'm doing it. Now, it is a 7 out of 10 for me, so it's a little, you know, further down in that 7 range, but this thing is good. I would probably put it just behind Drop and Ephus on that tier. I did a full review of this one on the channel too. I'll drop a link for you below, but just in short, you know, I thought I was going to hate it. I thought I was going to hate it because it's based on a video game that I never play, but my kids love it. Seeing the joy in their eyes, having my 11-year-old next to me on one side and my 6-year-old on the other side, and they both play it at various levels of the game Minecraft, and having them both kind of tell me their interpretation of what was happening on screen, why these characters were important, what the fucking chicken jockey thing was, all that shit was really special. And also, the movie, with not having any knowledge of the game, plays as a really cool adventure film that blends like digital animation with real world characters. But yeah, I had a good time with a Minecraft movie, so it's in the stellar tier. I don't care. What do you want me to tell you? We finally got one for the Kill Me tier. This is an independent film that I got a screener for, and I decided to watch it because I don't know why I didn't know this, because Margaret Qualley lived here near me. She lived like an hour from where I am right now and grew up around here. But I didn't know she had a sister until just like a few months ago. But Rainey Qualley is her sister, big sister, I believe. And she's also a singer. And I got a screener and I was like, oh shit, check that out. That's Margaret Qualley's sister. So she's the lead in this movie called Off the Record. It also stars actor and comedian Ryan Hansen, who I had known from a TV show I used to love called Party Down. So I was really intrigued by the two leads in the movie. The story is, it's like kind of like a romantic comedy, but it also puts in these elements of like domestic violence and like emotional manipulation in a relationship. It's very heavy themes for the main romantic relationship that's being followed in the movie, but the tone of the movie is a fun music rom-com. So it's really weird tonally, and it also didn't devote enough spotlight and time to the important topic of verbal abuse, domestic abuse. Like it talked about it and it kind of showed it to us, but then it didn't really ever focus on it or how to overcome it, how to live with it, none of that stuff. So it was really weird, man. It was scattered, and it was also kind of boring in parts. And truth be told, I eventually sped this thing up to 1.5 speed. Sorry. Another one that's not good that I would probably put at like a 4 out of 10 is a one that I just saw called On Swift Horses. It should be good, man. It should be good. Listen to this. It's Daisy Edgar Jones, Jacob Elordi, Will Poulter, and Diego Calva, all right, from Babylon. Now, this is not a spoiler because it's in the trailers. Jacob Elordi and Will Poulter are brothers. Will Poulter's married to Daisy Edgar Jones. They're all like hot in their like 20s, shortly after college, whatever. Jacob Elordi went to the military, he's back, and he goes to live with his brother and his sister-in-law. And Sasha Calle's also in the movie, by the way. And basically what ends up happening, without making it too convoluted, is they, as a group of 3, the 2 brothers and Daisy Edgar Jones, become wealthy or successful, whatever, through gambling, through horse track betting, basically, and the other bets that they make. And Lordy's character goes to Vegas, and he's basically addicted to gambling at this point because of the successes they've had. He meets Diego Calva there, and they strike up a romantic relationship. And basically, there's a ton of gay love scenes in this movie between the 2 of them, between Elordi and Calva. All right. And then also there's lesbian love scenes between Daisy Edgar Jones and Sasha Calle that she meets at like a fruit stand that Sasha Calle runs. And they strike up this friendship that ends up resulting in, a lesbian relationship. And the whole time, Will Poulter is just a cuck in the middle of it, I mean, everybody's having all this gay sex, and he's just there like, the straight and narrow dude. I mean, I know it was weird. But it's a movie that is so slow. Like, the performances couldn't save it. The music couldn't save it. The period setting was in the 1950s. I should love this thing, man, based on everything that I just told you. But it just was such a slow movie. Another one that's on the WTF side of things, but actually a little bit ahead of On Swift Horses, is Opus. Io Adebari is innocent. She's great in this movie. John Malkovich is hamming it up in the film. But this is another one that is all over the place tonally. And it's dealing with so many issues at its core, whether you're talking about social media or the price of fame or how we view celebrities in the public eye and how we treat them and paparazzi. And, it's just so... It has all these different things it wants to talk about, but then at the end of the day, it doesn't really talk about any of them. The cult status of celebrities and how we treat them like gods, basically, is the general plot. At least I think it is. And then all of a sudden, in the last 20 minutes, there's blood all over the place and gory guts and shit. I mean, it's crazy shit going on, almost body horror at the end of the movie that was thematically nothing like what we've been watching. Which, I mean, it's fine if a filmmaker wants to turn it on a dime like that. But it just felt very, there was a lot of different movies happening at one time with Opus. I love the performances in it, but the movie fell flat for me. This would also be around a 4 out of 10. I got to give Paddington in Peru a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think this came out in the early part of this year because it got pushed back in the U.S. I think it came out in January. But we just caught it on demand. My kids loved it. But it's Paddington. I mean, of course it's good. Now, it's not as good as the first 2. Those would have been 8 to 10, depending on what day it is. This one's more in the lower 7s. But, he goes to find one of the bear that raised him, basically. And he's in the jungle in Peru. It's an adventure film. He's cute as all get out as always. The animation is stellar as always. So it's fine. It's on the higher end of it's fine. But if you have kids, and especially if you're a fan of the Paddington character, then I would give it a go. But it's on the yellow tier for me, leading the charge there right now. I've got a couple indie horror films that I just caught recently. The Rule of Jenny Penn, I'm going to put on the okay, but what the fuck tier. It is going to be ahead of some of these others, though. It's going to be probably at the early part of this, actually. You know what? This might be the it's fine tier. Let me put it at a 6. So I'll put it up there. I'll put it at the end of the it's fine tier because it's going to be a lower end 6 out of 10. Here, James Ashcroft directed this thing, and it's a thriller at its core, set in a nursing home, a retirement home. Old folks, everybody there is retired or can't take care of themselves. It's a senior center. John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush are our 2 main characters. And the general premise of the movie is John Lithgow's been there at that home for a long time. He's the guy that runs the place in terms of the popular old guy. And he's 80 or whatever, and he has this puppet doll that he wears on his hand constantly that he calls Jenny Penn. And the movie plays on that child's play kind of thing where the doll might have some special powers or be possessed or whatever, a little supernatural element to it, but he's kind of controlling it, or it's part of him, or whatever. And Jeffrey Rush is a new resident that his family just put him in the home, so he's brand new there. And essentially, John Lithgow and Jenny Penn, the doll, basically terrorize this new resident. They don't want him there. They don't like him. They're trying to scare him away, basically. So it's a bit of a bullying story, and the concept of dealing with bullying, and how even in our elder years, we may come full circle where we were bullied as kids, like elementary school or whatever, and then you go all the way 70 or 80 years later, and you're in a retirement home and you're still being bullied by your peers. So that theme I really liked. The doll and the supernatural kind of tie-in fell flat. There was no payoff for it whatsoever, and it really just felt like more of a plot device to make this a horror movie. If this had just been a drama dealing with bullying and you had these two powerhouse elder actors in those roles, it might not have been as marketable as this kind of weird, kind of strange element that we can throw into the mix to make it kind of fresh and inventive, even though it's really not at the end of the day. The same thing can be said for The Shrouds. This is the new David Cronenberg, and I feel bad. I mean, this is a movie that I know that he wrote and directed to deal with the grief of losing his own wife, who died of cancer. And in this, the main character, Vincent Castle, has recently lost his wife, and he also runs a cemetery. This is a futuristic story also. Of course, Cronenberg's got those elements to a lot of his movies. But you can pay to have a live feed, a live stream of their grave through an app on your phone at any time. Or you can come there and watch it on the gravestone like a TV. So weird and creepy. But Cronenberg takes the story and the screenplay way off from that mark. It kind of starts there, and you kind of go, okay, this is going to be some crazy Cronenberg shit. One of the corpses is going to come to life, or somebody's going to get into the grave with the corpse, or somebody's going to be buried alive, or there's going to be some crazy shit. No, it stays straight. He keeps it straight, and he keeps it more about a story of dealing with grief and dealing with getting back out there in the world after losing your loved one or your mate of however many years. And it just never goes back to the creepy Cronenberg vibes that I personally dig and that I thought I was getting in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. It's very chatty, very talky, a lot of dialogue with not a lot of action to back it up. Guy Pearce is underused in this movie. I also called the plot twist or who the antagonist was going to be in the film way early. The performance does not do enough to kind of hide that reveal. And it was just kind of cheesy to me personally. Now, from a filmmaking standpoint and the craft of it, Cronenberg's one of the masters. And that's why I said I feel bad, because this is made exquisitely. I mean, it looks great, and it's got a lot of the Cronenberg tropes that you're used to. But the story just did not work for me, because it started out as one thing and then ended up being something that, frankly, didn't hold my interest. These two are going to be easy, though. The only 10 out of 10 movie that I've given out this year, Sinners! Let's go. I also think Oscar potential is on the horizon. I did a full review of this movie on the channel. I also did a second follow-up video talking about its awards season chances, of which I think there are plenty. Sinners, 10 out of 10, best movie of the year so far, in my opinion. I freaking love this thing. I won't go too far in depth to it. Performances are great. Ryan Coogler's direction is off the charts. Best directing effort of his career. The movie has so many different thematic elements to it that are important, but also entertaining. It ties in genre filmmaking, and it is prestige filmmaking. Those two crossroads don't usually intersect, and they do so in this movie. The vampire stuff, the way it's been presented and marketed as a vampire movie, happens like the last 45 minutes. The first hour and a half of the movie is a period drama about racism, essentially, and about what black people were dealing with during the Jim Crow era in Mississippi, and how they needed an escape from that. And the vampires come into the story as a bit of a representation for racism or the KKK or whatever you want to say towards the end of the film. But it is a very important watch, and it's my favorite film of the year. Bam, number one for April without a doubt. However, and by the way, this is in alphabetical order, so this wasn't intentional, but the other one that's going to go up here on no notes is my number 2 of the year so far, and that's Warfare, directed by Alex Garland and his buddy Ray Mendoza, who is a veteran Navy SEAL. That the story and the screenplay here is based on him and his troops' mission during the Iraq War. The movie is told in real time over the course of this mission that they went on to surveil these Iraqi militants. And they were in their neighborhood, they took over a home, and they set up shop to surveil them there to see if they were any kind of terrorist threat. There were some incidents that occurred that actually happened. The movie's based on the soldiers' memories from that event and retold based on that way. So it's almost not even a script almost. It's almost improv based on how they remember the event playing out. Harrowing. Absolutely harrowing. Brilliantly shot. The sound design could get an Oscar nomination. That's how good it is. I thought Civil War was robbed of sound nomination last season, and this is better. So hopefully Garland and team are not robbed a second time for best sound. I would put it at right at a 9 out of 10, and it was so good, so impactful, and so like, holy shit, man. And you just sit there like the walls are shaking, and like, I mean, it's intense stuff. It puts you literally in the foxhole with these guys. So Warfare is my number 2 of the year so far. Also happens to be my number 2 for the month of April because it came out the same month as Sinners, which is my number 1. All right, there you go, guys. So that's my tier list. Let me show you. That's one more time. So there's how I rank them. Get a screenshot, do whatever the hell you want to do there. Hopefully, editing Gerald threw up the little scorecard and whatever details I gave you on the movie. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I edited it in post, filming it on the last day of April. So hopefully, if you're lucky, it'll be out before next April because kids have other plans. That is it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another tier list. I'm going to do this every month for all the new releases I watch, or I should say all the first-time watches that I see. So if I watch a movie, even if it came out like in the 30s and I've never seen it, I'll throw it on one of these tier lists as a first-time watch. Let me know what you guys thought of my tier list, and also I would love to know, what is your number 1 ranked film that you saw in April that you had never seen before? Please let me know down below. Was it one of these or was it some other gem? I would love to know, and I will see you again at the end of May when we do our next monthly ranking tier list. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys out here next time in the garage.